Each year the Welsh two-day Enduro takes place towards the end of June, and everyone involved, the organisers and the riders, all hope for 2 dry days. But a few days of dry weather does have its problems and can result in very dusty conditions.
And it certainly was dusty in places.
Difficult to see where you're going in the dust, and the same applies in the fog. And this is what it was like in 1998. Fortunately, the fog did lift fairly soon, and it turned out to be a bright sunny day. But it's not always dry. This wasn't even part of the course. It was near the Parc Ferme at the lakeside. But it's the weather that makes all the difference. This was back in 1991. Noel Price was the assistant clerk of the course, and this was some of the going near Bulsani.
Fortunately for our riders, this part of the course was only used once on the first day. The Kawasaki rider there is Steve Plain in the experts class. Pete Bavin was riding one of the latest Yamahas, but it didn't seem to want to go through here. There were several spectators on this section, but they soon got tired of lifting bikes out of the mud. Gary Berryman was going well in his Suzuki, well, for some of the time, and Colin Moyse knew that he'd need the help of one of the marshals, so he pinned him down. It wasn't really Colin's day, though. He fell off several times. And Chris Price wasn't looking too happy in this muddy hole. That was Neil Boker trying a different line. David Ludica was stood up on the pegs. Perhaps he thought this was a trial section. Anyway, he got a 5. And with some help, he was able to retrieve his front wheel. But where had the back one gone? And then a little later, well, he nearly disappeared altogether. Sparks and Tuck won both special tests, but they lost 12 minutes in this bog hole. There was one spectator who was having lots of fun all on his own. Would anyone help him out of there?
It was wet again in 1992.
Heavy rain overnight had made the course quite slippery, as Paul Pellin and Sue Kemp found out. Sue nearly got left behind. Number 5, Aled and Ewan Evans from Ystrad Meirig. This was a tricky corner for the sidecars. Roy Humphrey and Paul Robinson had gone a bit wide. David Baxter and Michael Duke, they were on the same line, so they couldn't go anywhere. Ray Ferguson and Wayne Williams, they picked a different line altogether, and they flew through this section. Ivan Manning and Nathan Jones, they were in the clubman class. Number 38, Barry Hayward and Roy Jeffries from Tyne-and-Weir, they'd won the Powys Enduro just a month ago. A very kind spectator was helping Brian and Katie Short, and I didn't think he was at the right end of the bike. I think it's much safer to push rather than pull to the second test at Llandegley. This was a new test which had 1 or 2 wet areas. Phil Wilkinson was rather lucky here. He got long legs, and the spectators were keen to help. Number 154 is a clubman rider, Corporal Martin Fields. Lady expert rider Katrina Price was on fine form. The boggy sections did present problems for some of the sidecars. Alan Brown, the driver, he was okay, but when Roger Tuck jumped off, he nearly disappeared out of sight. Peter Tolley was in quite a hurry, and he was hoping to pass Charles Thompson. But you can't overtake in the gutter, and Peter found out that his legs weren't long enough. This was quite an eventful first day. Out of the whole entry, only about half a dozen riders went clean, and they were clubmen. Campbell Fowler was struggling a little with his Husky 250, and Ben Knock was coming down the hill far too quickly. Did he know there was a gateway at the bottom? Well, I suppose that was one way of going through. Wendy Buck was chasing Katrina for the ladies' title, but she had a nasty bump here. There was some tough going in the forest at Abbeycwmhir, particularly for the sidecars. Although Kenny and Andre lost 14 minutes on day one, they were going to finish third overall. And the top sidecar pair this year, and for the second year running, Bowden and Manning, they only lost 7 minutes on the going. And the runners-up, Paul Pellin and Sue Kemp, only 10 minutes late on day one.
In 1993 it was dry overhead for both days, but very wet under the trees in the Red Lion Forest.
Ray Ferguson and Wayne Williams were in need of some assistance. Eddie Morris and Gwyn Stevens were on hand. The Evans brothers were determined not to stop. But Aled had to slow up just a little. Noel Price had marked out this part of the route, and he suddenly realised he shouldn't have been stood in the middle of the track. Alan Bates found it slippery coming through here. And so did quite a few of the Clubman riders. Number 90, Joe Varley. Jeremy Moss going through a very muddy section. Patricia Scheck was in trouble and help was coming from everywhere. Bob Perrin had got quite a following here today. He was looking a bit bewildered because the course had been altered. Was Graham Hancock's going to get to the top of the hill? Well, not quite. Chris Bird was on the way down, but was he going too quick? Even the experts make mistakes. Another expert rider, William Buchanan. Ian Bell was looking a little tired on this second day. He might have a couple of bruises by the end of the day. There were some new boggy sections later in the day. I think that was David Newland. Local rider Mike Davis from Crossgates being followed by Martin Sufflin.
In 2003 the weather was good on the first day. It was dry and dusty in places. This was a special test at Abbeycwmhir on the first day, and it was riding well. In fact, in places it was quite dusty.
Raybrook was riding in the expert 250cc class. John Shirt was riding a new 4-stroke gas. Andrew Knapman, the last number in the programme, he wasn't cornering too well. Back at the finish at the lakeside well after 6 o'clock, it had been raining.
And it rained for most of the night, and it was still raining in the morning when the competitors arrived at Abbeycwmhir.
Solo riders, it was like a skating rink. Bryn John had been practicing reverse. It was almost impossible to stand. That's it, you'll make it. Bruce Phillips couldn't hold on to his KTM. George Gordon was riding a Suzuki, but not for too long. They were going down like flies. I thought number 76 had picked a good line. Julian Chalice was trying to stay out of the mud, but it didn't work. One of the marshals came to help Julian. Mark Hanchett riding a Kawasaki, but not for too long. A lot of smoke coming from that one. Ian Harding, number 62. Oh, that was very close. Brett Wright couldn't do much about it. Was that number 47? Some people fell off before the bottom of the hill. That was well done. That rider slid under the tapes. A bit of a balancing act from Simon Anderson. That was becoming a favourite place to fall off. This was Bob Mullins on fine form. Wait for the quotation. Was that from Shakespeare? It wasn't getting any easier on this part of the test. Ian Myers was heading straight up the hill, and some riders made it look so easy. This chap had given up with his goggles. Perhaps he couldn't see where he was going. It was easy to fall off and very difficult to stand up. Was that Doreen Shaw? Dave Wood struggled a bit. I thought he was going to make it this time, but no. That was Paul May showing off to the spectators. A bit difficult reversing here. A number of people tried though. That was Paul Claxton. Synchronized fooling about, you get bonus points for that. Was that a pair of KTMs? Andy Oldham was loving these conditions. Did you hear the warning signal then? I think it must have frightened that rider down there. Fran Hamer goes down by the spectators. Derek Jaffrey all the way from the Falkland Islands, and I think he's looking for a way home. Someone had abandoned his bike on the course, and that chap has just ridden over the top of it. One of the army riders going well, it was Andrew Martin. Craig Beattie sliding back down the hill. Jason Davis hadn't got up quite enough speed. For some riders, this special test was an Enduro all on its own. Marshals and spectators all worked very hard. It was still raining when the expert riders got to this test. Some were wearing the latest gear, this jacket modelled by Andrew Edwards.
The weather can make all the difference. 2007 was another year where the weather made all the difference. This was part of the going between Llanuthal and Boothkilly on the first day.
Steve and Ian were runners-up in the Welsh last year.
Heavy rain a few days before the event meant that it was going to be very wet in places.
Paul has won the Welsh 5 times. That was when he was in the chair with Gary Bowden, and it was back in the 90s. Number 12 is Martin Chapman and Claire Butler from Camborne. And with number 13 on the outfit, I hope it won't be unlucky for them, it's Alid and Ewan Evans. They had problems at the Powys this year.
This section, although it was slightly on the downhill, was a problem on this first day.
Oh, and it's not looking any better up there. Remember the entry this year, over 600 altogether. That's Ray and James Ferguson. And that was James's fault, he wasn't leaning out enough. Number 33, it's Anne and John Giles. They finished 7th at the Welsh last year. Now come on, John, stop playing round in the mud. Oh, wait a minute, I wonder, have they had a falling out earlier today? Anne's not stopping. And now we've got some action here. 76 is Martin Ray. He's another rider from the Bolton area. And the marshal here is quite rightly making sure they stay on the course. That's Jonathan Hayes from Shrewsbury. I think he rides at the Cotswold Enduro Club. Ian Brown from Bolton on the Husaberg. And one or two riders over there have stopped for a chat. Oh, it's a bit slippery for the fireman from West Yorkshire. That's Bruce Wilson. John Lupton on the 4-stroke Honda. Ian Brown from Bolton, and this puddle of water is quite deep. Martin Bullock from Kinkton, I would think he's on time. He gave his boots a wash then. Now was that 89 Buster Griffin? And 99 there is Paul Jones. I wonder, does this part of the course look familiar to you? It's the Ross at Llanuthel, and we were here yesterday morning. It's going to be a bit different today because the riders have to come up here. The first sidecar we see, number 3, Matt Turner and Gavin Yelland. They're clean on the going, and on test times they're lying in 2nd place. Here are the riders out in front. It's Bradford and Morgan. I can't say yet that they're going to win the Welsh because they've still got some distance to go. That's Dave Vaughan showing off on this last section of the course. Malcolm Davies from Crossgates, he dropped 11 minutes yesterday. I told you the sky had gone black and now it really is raining. It will clean these number plates. 194 is Robert Withy. And that Kawasaki looking rather warm over there. And the sidecar pair, I recognise them now. It's Alistair and Sharon Neville. And there's enough steam and heat over there to make a cup of tea. Have you lost any time today?
No, I'm all right today.
Oh, well, yeah. Did you lose any yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Too much.
We've got another sidecar. I think it's 37, Arthur Walton and James Georges. 124 is Vince Winterbank. He's a sportsman rider. And what do you do when you see 2 sidecars stuck in the bog? I think you walk away quickly. This marshal here, I think his hair's getting wet. 241 is Dan Heelis. That rope around the forks is a great help. 237, that was David Salkett, and look out, where does that rider come from? That was Sean Skinner, frightening the spectators. That's Roy Harris from Wallsend. Nick Bartle has got some speed up. It wasn't quite enough though. Here comes one of the army riders. Oh dear, it wasn't quite the right way to do it. It's Frodo Evans. And I think he only stopped then to make sure his number plate was clean. Another one coming. Oh no, he's not. And that's Lee Hook, and he hasn't quite made it. 462 is Jason Fowler. And the Yamaha rider behind him, Andrew Buxton. He doesn't like the look of it. He's going to have a rest. An expert rider on a Yamaha. Oh! And I was going to say that this rider's on a KTM, but not anymore. That's Chris Walton.
So that was some of the action from the Welsh from a few years ago when a change in the weather made all the difference. But the Welsh, as usual, is a great event, whatever the weather, and I'm sure it's going to be a great event again this year.